Aaron, welcome to the show.
Hey Charles, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. It's good to talk to you. Obviously, there's a big election that is coming up, and everybody's kind of eager to see how things are going to shake out. And you are a candidate for lieutenant governor, and I guess the best place to start is to ask why you're doing it. I mean, it's a large undertaking. You had a lot going on, so why run for lieutenant governor?
This is not something that I actually planned. I was honored to be asked by Gary Rabine a couple of weeks ago to join the campaign. When I went into his office, he said, Aaron, we'd really love you to be a part of this campaign. And I thought he was talking about maybe like a volunteer coordinator or, some of the strategy side of things or operations. And he goes, no, Aaron, we want you to be my running mate. I want you to be my lieutenant governor candidate. And I was certainly touched by that, but I tried to talk him out of it. And I said, Gary, are you sure you want me to do this? Not everybody cares for my personal style. I'm a true and red meeting conservative Republican, and that doesn't always play well in suburban Cook. I'm very much to the base and to the right of most people. And he said, Aaron, we know that, and we think you're gritty and you're a fighter. And I've heard a lot about you. You have this fighting attitude. And I said, Gary, when they talk about me as a fighter, they're talking about that literally. He goes, well, no, what do you mean? I'm like, I used to be a cage fighter. I fought 13 times inside of the cage. I go, like head on, man, mano a mano. And Gary goes, really? I go, yeah. And I go, I think that makes me uniquely qualified to be a Republican in Illinois because you don't go in the cage not expecting to get punched in the face. And you don't go in Illinois politics as a Republican not expecting to get punched in the face either. And if we're going to do it, it's going to be a tough knockdown, drag out brawl. But I think we should do it to make Illinois better. I mean, failed Governor Pritzker has over and over and over again shown why that he should not be leading Illinois in the top office. And it's time to replace him. We need to fire J.B. Pritzker and we need to hire Gary Rabine.
So it's interesting that you say you never know what you're going to get, that you say that you weren't, not only were you not lobbying for the job, you tried to talk him out of it. So I want to ask you then the question from the reverse side. So you're doing this, he came to you. So why did you say yes? Why him? Not only why did you say yes, you could have not run, you could have just been a volunteer, like you said, but also, we'll get to the large field, but there's a pretty crowded field. You could have been like, I don't want to do this at all, or I'd rather go with this guy. So what made you say yes?
Well, no, definitely. After Gary was so kind enough to offer the option to me, I told him that I needed a day to talk to my family. I needed to pray on it a little bit. And, in all transparency, I did talk to some of the other campaigns and, there were some discussions about me being part of other campaigns in one area or another. And when I looked at all the other campaigns and I looked at the options and just like you said, I thought about sitting it out. I don't have to make any move. I could have just kind of watched what happened during the primary and, and see what happened and the support whoever our nominee was in the general. But that's not really my personality nor my style, Charles. I mean, I met you a long time ago. I'm a kind of guy that likes to get my hands in there. I like to get in the middle of the grit and make some things happen. And when I met Gary and I saw what kind of man he was, and he's a truly decent man, a good man that cares about Illinois, and he's doing it for the right reasons. He wasn't recruited by the consulting class, to say, hey, we want you to be the gubernatorial candidate. He wasn't backed by bazillionaires. He wasn't somebody that wants to light everything on fire and then rule over the ashes like some of the candidates from down south. He wasn't a plant that was brought in from California to be, the golden child made for TV candidate. He is a real person. And he was somebody that I thought I could get behind and somebody that I thought I could do a lot of great things. And he was truly honorable. And I wanted to be a part of that campaign. And I'm very excited to be doing so. And I'm very grateful to be offered the position.
So now you're on the ticket, you're running. And not only did you have to decide to run, based on your personal issues in your family, what's best for you personally, and whether you and Gary were the right fit. But you also had to think there's something wrong with the state. I mean, obviously, you love the state. If you didn't care, you wouldn't put yourself through this grind. But it's not perfect. Something needs to be fixed. You mentioned Pritzker. So talk a bit about what you and Rabine see as problems in the state of Illinois.
So, I mean, there's several issues that go across all streams of what's going on in Illinois. I mean, obviously, failed Governor Pritzker has consistently shown that he lacks leadership and direction to move our state in a positive direction. If you look at the way that they're handling mandates, they look at the way that they're handling a lot of the more social issues. They just repealed parental notification here in Illinois. A lot of people don't even realize what that means. So I have a daughter who's 13 years old, and if the school nurse wants to give her an aspirin because she has a headache, they have to call me and tell me that, get permission. But if they want to give my daughter an abortion, nobody would contact me or call me. That, I think, from a common sense standpoint, doesn't make any sense at all. If you want to go and eat at, Woodfield Mall in the food court, you need to show an ID and a Vax card. If you want to go vote in Illinois, you don't need to show anything. So, these aren't crazy positions. These are, moderate right-leaning positions or whatnot, but they're common sense. And I think one of the things that me and Gary bring to this race is common sense solutions. That just doesn't smell right. That just isn't the way that it should be. And we don't need to get too down in the weeds to understand that a lot of people, Democrat, Republican, Independent, don't agree with those policies. And that's it. I mean, all these mandates, if you look at what's happening in Virginia with the new election of Governor Youngkin, rolling back a lot of those mandates, that's a blue state. We think that we can make positive changes for Illinois, and move in the right direction. I mean, public safety for standpoint. I mean, we have the worst public safety in the United States, worse than New York. And New York is 3 times larger than us, and we have 5 times the crime rate. You had the minority leader of the House, a Democrat, who got carjacked, and her husband opened fire in return, which actually, if you think about it, is kind of hypocritical because they're talking about they want gun control, but yet he's returning fire because he's got a concealed carry. There are 1,200 carjackings in Chicago and Cook County. There's 870 murders. There's currently right now over 100 people that are on trial for murder. I'm not talking about stealing a candy bar. I'm talking about murder that are on release with an anklet that are in our society. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Regardless of your political affiliation, that is not a common sense solution. And that's what we're fighting against here. It's tyranny, to be honest with you.
Well, you make some important points first, and I want to kind of discuss them a little bit further. You started off talking about your 13-year-old daughter, and you used the example of the aspirin to the abortion. And that's important because people need to understand. So obviously you run for office, so I can't, my shtick is education and the culture, and I don't really approach it from the political standpoint. Not that it's not important. So you obviously can't do that when you're running for office. However, when you do that, you have to tell these stories. You have to give these great examples like you did so people understand it. So you did a good job there, and I want to just add a little finer point to that. So his daughter's 13, talked about that difference. And I'm sure many of the listeners here have heard this argument about CRT and they don't know how to address it. And I don't talk about CRT. I don't think you need to put a label on it. You talk about what the problem is. And one example that goes even further than that problem, which is a problem, is we have this gender issue. And, I've obviously years in Chicago, I'm in New York now. And you have these schools that are saying, well, they're pushing transgenderism in the sense that they're not telling people they should do it, but they're over supporting it. So, there's certain things they need to tell parents and certain things they don't. But they are pushing a situation where they have this form. I don't know if you've seen it, where you can fill out this form, you check the box, my name is Bob, I want to be called Lisa, I identify as a girl. Do your parents know? If I check no, as a 13-year-old, technically Bob can go into the school, have everybody, teachers and students call him Lisa, sneak in a dress, wear a dress in class in school all day, keep it in his locker room, and they will never, with a wink and a nod, tell the parent and keep the parent in the dark. So they need to understand, the average citizen needs to understand that this is not an argument against LGBT rights, against transgender people. This is an argument, as you say, about common sense, argument about how you address these situations. And when you just arbitrarily decide that parents are important, and when, they don't need to know anything, we decide what's best. You can't have it both ways. I mean, and now they're openly coming out saying, well, the state does own the kids. We can't just go around letting parents do this. So I think it's really important that you point that out. And like you say, it goes for every issue.
One thing I think the pillar of the Rabine Del Mar campaign is we want to get government out of your life. We want to stop government for telling you what to do. If you don't want to get a vaccine, then the government should not be pushing needles into your arms. If you want to get a vaccine, great. We support you. You want to get, 2 shots and a booster. We're not telling you not to. We're supportive of whatever it is, but we don't want mandates. We don't want people telling you, listen, this is how we're educating your children. We don't care what your opinion is. We don't care what you want your children taught. This is what we're going to indoctrinate them with. That's where I have a problem. Parents need to be more involved in their life. If you look at any of the studies, when parents are more involved in the children's life, they have 10 times more higher success rate than anywhere else. This is a breakdown of family values, and the government is trying to take the role of parenting. And I think that's wrong. And I think that government needs to be very limited scope, needs to be keeping it publicly safe, which we're failing at here in Illinois. They need to make sure that we have clean water, that we have roads, and that, if a fire comes out, the firemen are coming. Very limited scope. They don't need to be telling us what our kids should be reading or shouldn't be reading. They need to bring parents back in the fold and have them be more responsible for their children.
And let's stick with education a little bit longer, in the sense that we ignore all these mandates, all these, kind of pushes to teach real history or changing curriculum and doing all this stuff. There's an issue with the quality of the education that no one talks about anymore, right?
Right.
We have been reduced to arguments about race in every topic, or fairness and equity, but we don't talk about the fact that there's obviously too high percentage of people who are dropping out, but of the ones, we're passing people through. So instead of raising people's abilities and skills up to a level, we just lower the level down to where they are. So people have diplomas and they can't read them, right? And the state and you and Gary Raybank will have some control over what we do, because you control the purse strings from the feds. So what do you think needs to be done to shore up the problems in education?
Well, education is a pillar of any society, period. Right? The quality of education, the way that you educate your children, the way that you matriculate people through the system is incredibly important. And Illinois schools have been failing over and over again. And what they need to do is they need to break it down on a local level. I think that they need to give more local control to the school boards and to the actual communities there, not only regarding the taxation and how they're going to pay for it, but also about the curriculum and what they're going to be teaching and the way that it's going to be instructed. Every Cook County in Illinois and every school district is a little bit different. What you're teaching down in, Rock Island, or you're teaching in Chicago, or you're teaching down in Kankakee County, you have different communities that have different values. And I think that those should be reflected in what's being taught in education. If you look at the city of Chicago, there's a high percentage of people that don't send their kids to public schools because the quality of that education is inferior, so they send them to Catholic schools. I mean, that's just that's just the way it is, right? These people are still paying for that education that they're not utilizing. They're effectively getting double taxed. They're not, the Rayvon Delmar campaign is really, and we're about school vouchers. You're paying that tax, like it or not, it's a community good. You should be able to use a portion of that to go to the school that you want to. You should have school choice. Because you are relegated to living in one neighborhood shouldn't mean that you can't, if you can find a way to get your child there to a different school 2 neighborhoods over, they should have that opportunity. That's what I consider to be equity. I think that, they've been kowtowing so much to teachers unions and to the Chicago Teachers Union that it's gotten completely out of hand. You have the teachers calling the shots versus over the administration. Look at the way they've handled this COVID-19 and bringing kids back and that school. Lori Lightfoot just has no control over the teachers union. They're running the show. It's what they want to do. And how does that work? Certainly they should have a place at the negotiating table, and their voices should be heard. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, right? Teachers are important. I wouldn't be the man I am today without several teachers that really took a lot of time, to help me become the man that I am. But the way that Illinois is structured, the way that unions have control over Illinois is dysfunctional, and it's creating a void where education and children are the ones that are suffering from it.
And then you mentioned, we can talk about 2 more of the big issues plaguing the state, and they all kind of tie together, because you mentioned the unions. You also talked about how you pay for it, the tax dollar, people being double taxed. So there's a funding issue in the state that creates a large debate, because some think we just need more money, and they ignore how much money is there. They forgive and give a pass on how it's spent. So really what you need is better management, but also, it's who you're taxing and how you're doing it. You're taxing people out of their homes and out of their businesses. So talk about the economic landscape of the state as it is and what you think needs to be done to turn things around.
Well, so it's for 2 points. First one is Illinois used to be known as the land of Lincoln. Now everyone jokes and they say now Illinois is the land of fleeing, right? Because we're losing population and those people aren't coming back. And the reason that they're leaving is not only because of our ridiculous crime rate and that we can't keep our people safe, but also the opportunity in Illinois is no longer there. Chicago, since the beginning of America, has always been a huge bustle because of its location to Lake Michigan and, for infrastructure and from rail. It's always been one of the biggest, most economically diverse locations. And people are leaving because we're not competitive anymore. They're going to Indiana, they're going to Texas, they're going to Tennessee, they're going to Nevada, they're going to places where the economic climate makes it so much better for them to be able to be successful. And when you have these businesses fleeing, then you lose jobs, less economic opportunity. But not only that, but it creates a bigger burden on the people that stay because you need to replace those tax dollars and that income somewhere, right? So it creates this downward spiral as the mass exodus of people out, that the people that do stay, that people love Illinois and have raised their families here and want to continue to do that, the burden on them just continues to grow and grow and grow and grow. So what they need to do is they need to start evaluating, hey, what do we need to be competitive? How do we get businesses to stay here, number one? And two, how do we recruit and bring other businesses to Illinois? Because we have a lot of natural resources here. I mean, as soon as everyone forgets that Illinois is a huge farming community, there's a ton of land, there's a ton of water. Lake Michigan is right there. O'Hare Airport is one of the largest hubs, and we have wonderful restaurants. We have wonderful amenities that can attract people, right? Who doesn't like to go down to Chicago on a normal year when they're not gunshot and violence, right? I mean, normally I like to go down to Chicago, stay at the hotel, see a show, right? Now I don't go unless I bring a Kevlar vest and I'm, bringing my concealed carry because it's not safe. But again, Gary and I have some pretty good ideas that we're going to do about public safety. But getting back to it, we've created an environment where nobody wants to do business in Illinois. We're closed for business. And until that changes, and that change has to come from the top, it's not, we're going to keep on bleeding out businesses and people, period.
Well, another piece of that is bad enough as it is. Doesn't sound too bright. You got to fix this. But in addition to that, there's the albatross of the pension that's hanging over the state's neck. And I know Rauner made an attempt to make a change, lost in courts. So what can you do about that? Because if nothing changes there, everything else is going to be a tough drag. I'm not saying it's 100% impossible, but you're dragging weight behind you without that.
So, Illinois has over $5 billion of pension debt. And if you just think about that for a second, $500 billion of pension debt, if they're getting 5% on their money, right, that's $25 billion a year that we're paying on pensions. It's an astronomical number. What Illinois needs to do is have a common sense solution to it. Pensions were a promise that were given to people. So I am 100% about keeping promises. So if you were promised a pension, if you're a teacher, a fireman, if you were working for Secretary of State, whatever position you are in, if you were promised a pension, I believe that should be fulfilled to the end, period. I think that we need to redo the way that we bring people into the system. So if you've been a fireman for 20 years and you were promised a pension, you should get it. But if you are a new entry into the system, there needs to be some sort of compromise, maybe a hybrid system where there's half pension, half 401k, right? If we don't change that systemically, it's just going to continue and it's going to snowball and it's going to get worse. So if you were promised a pension, you should be able to keep it. But as people are matriculating in and we're getting new hires in, we need to have a second tier system that is sustainable. So at some point, we're going to, nature is going to take care of those people that were promised those pensions, and those are going to be changed. And as people continue to grow into the system, they're going to have a new hybrid sustainable system that we can continue on. Because currently right now, we're going to be Detroit, period.
Right. And so now you talked about the economic situation, talked about education. We have to talk about the big boy, what makes Illinois, what puts you on the map nationally. There's a crime problem, right? And everyone focuses on Chicago, but unfortunately, it's not just Chicago. Chicago's just the worst. It's just it's a combination of things, actually, as you know. So talk a bit about what the problem is from a criminal justice standpoint and what you think the solution should be.
So like you just said, Charles, and I think it's a great point. You know, the crime rate in Illinois is not just located and targeted in Chicago. You can tell by the shootings that just happened in Oak Brook. It's seeping out into the suburbs, and it's going into southern counties. It's a statewide issue now. It's no longer just, you know, fenced into the Chicago city limits. You're seeing it in Palatine. You're seeing it in St. Charles. You're seeing it in DuPage. You're seeing it in Kane, Will County, everywhere. And what needs to happen, and it's not as easy as people think. Well, like, we're just going to put them all in jail. I don't think that's a common sense solution. You can't just lock everybody up, because now you're going to be paying to house and feed everybody in the system. And, you know, that's not doesn't make any sense. What they need to do is they need to look at a common sense solution, and probably a hybrid. Like, look, if you're on trial for a capital crime, you're staying in jail, right? If we think that you're a murderer, and certainly you should have the opportunity of due process to prove that you're not a murderer, right? It's the government's obligation to prove that you're a murderer. But if you are being considered for murder, yeah, you should be behind bars. If you are being on trial for rape or any kind of felony regarding a handgun or any kind of crime like that, you should be behind bars. This idea that Kim Foxx and the Cook County State's Attorney's Office did, where they're not going to prosecute anyone that shoplifts $1,000 or left, is basically free range, saying, hey, go out and have a buffet of whatever you want, take whatever you want, because we're not going to do anything about it. This Illinois law that was passed by Senator Martwick that says if you are trespassing, we're no longer going to arrest you, we're just going to give you a ticket, is free range to tell criminals that do whatever you want. There is no reason for them to not continue to display bad behaviors. So we need to start prosecuting crimes for people that are multiple offenders. We need to start protecting the public, right? You know, prisons were created for two reasons. They were, one, as a deterrent for people to say, hey, if you do something bad, you're going to go to prison and you're not going to like it, right? That's not going to be a fun experience. It's not Disneyland, right? That's number one. It's a deterrent and a punishment. The second reason is to protect the people from offenders, right? You know, these people have proven that they can't be in regular society. So we need to take them out of regular society, and we need to put them in their own place so they can't hurt regular God-fearing people that are not doing anything wrong, right? It's protection of the community. Those are the two reasons, right? Deterrent, punishment, and public safety. And if you go by those two pillars, you can do, have common sense solutions, the way that crime should be reduced in Illinois and the city of Chicago. And they're not doing that. Not only that, but they're broadcasting and telling the criminals that, we're not going to enforce it. So, Tim Evans, is the Cook County judge, who's in charge of all this, and Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx, both of them are creating, this environment where there's not accountability. And what does that teach everyone? It teaches them that they can do whatever they want. And here's the thing too, they're not empowering the police officers, right? Police officers in Chicago and across the United States have been abandoned. So now there's a situation where, a police officer is like, hey, you want me to go enforce this law? And if somebody points a gun at me and I shoot to protect myself, I could be the next one on trial. So when they see criminals going by, they're like, I don't know if I should go do anything about that, because I'd be the one that ends up in jail. So they're not enforcing a lot of it because they're not being supported and they're not having any backup. You need to empower people, right? And there should be oversight as well. This is not the wild, wild west where all right, cops, you go out and shoot wherever you want, right? I mean, I'm not suggesting that, but you need to empower people at the local level to be a part of the community and to police it, and to not have fear of retribution against them for doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, there's two important points to what you said that I don't think get enough play. And I say this a lot. I mean, I'm not in Illinois anymore. I hope if you win, you do something about it. But I say this everywhere because I think it's so important. Two things. There's a flaw that people believe, people like Tim Evans and Kim Foxx, believe that criminals, because they do bad things, are dumb people. If any of you out there think that, you're wrong. It has nothing to do with anything. They're not dumb just because they're criminals. So there's nothing stopping them when you raise that dollar amount to $1,000 that you can't envision this happening, but it could actually happen. They steal a bunch of stuff and they're paying attention to how much it is. Oh, I better put this one back. You don't think people would do that? If you think that sounds silly, sounds too far fetched, think about the people when you used to see these drug dealers on the street who were 20 and 30 years old, and now you see these kids. Why do you think 12-year-olds are doing carjackings? It's because somebody else is sending them out there because Kim Foxx refuses to lock them up. So there's regardless of your intentions, there are consequences to it. That's one. The second thing is you don't want people languishing in jail, and neither do I. The problem is they think the solution is to just lower the bail because it's unfair that poor people are in jail. But not if they're poor and they're murderers. There are two things: they're poor and they're a murderer. What I've been arguing for, and I think some liberals, but definitely conservatives, will get on board with this. And this is constitutional. The Constitution says, as a citizen, I have a right to a speedy trial. What I don't like is, I don't care if he's innocent or if he's a murderer, whatever, when you arrest somebody for something and then he sits in jail for 2 years and then he gets convicted, but they give him time served because he waited so long. So instead of lowering the bail, maybe you raise the bail and use that money to bring on more public defenders and judges so you can pump people through the court system. That's what we need.
Well, and here's the thing too, is that, there's another part of this, right? You need to be, I really believe in conservative principles, but I also believe in being a conscious and honest when we're doing a lot of this. And part of the issue is that if you want to deal with systemic crime, you need to do it in a two-part fashion. One, just like I talked about, right? You need to let people know that if you behave in this manner, you're going to be held accountable for your actions, and we're going to put you away, and we're going to protect the rest of the community. But then also on the secondary time, you need to create more opportunities in a lot of these areas, right? Because what happens is when people don't have opportunities, when they don't have a way that they can matriculate through education because the education system sucks or it fails them, or they, or all the businesses and Target and everybody else left, you can't get a job. Nobody wants, there's no Uber out there. There's no Uber Eats or Grubhub because nobody wants to drive around in that neighborhood. You have less opportunity. So there needs to be a reinvestment in a lot of these areas, predominantly Hispanic areas, Black areas, areas that have, Eastern European groups, and we need to build micro loans and jobs in these areas so they can flourish and they have an opportunity to do stuff outside of selling drugs or creating crimes or stealing because they can get the things that they want and they see. A lot of times people are like, oh, why do you think they stole it? Why would they steal this purse? Because that person knows that no matter how hard they work, they're never going to get that purse. And the only way they could ever get that purse is to steal it. So once you understand some of the thoughts behind that, well, let's find a way to get these people successful so they can, earn that money, get that job, get those items or get these things that they want in life. They can do it the right way. When people don't have opportunity, that's when you have a lot more crime because they don't see any way out.
Right. So what else? I mean, what else do you think are the pain and pressure points in the state that we haven't already discussed that you think is very important, that you think the people, as you go out and talk to people, are saying that is an issue that they're having?
What I think that we have a lack of, not only in the governor's mansion, but in the Illinois legislature, is a lack of intestinal fortitude because nobody wants to lose their job. And what I mean by that is when you're an elected official, you'll do a lot of things that aren't right for the people because you know that they're politically popular, right? Because you want to stay being a state rep, because you want to stay being a state senator, and nobody has the guts to do what's right for the people. And I think that's one thing that Gary and I are bringing to this race is that we're going to make systemic changes that are going to be positive to people that may be unpopular in the short term, but in the long term will be. Gary is committed to only running for 2 terms, on 8 years on it. And he says that he's going to empower me to be one of his policy directors and we bring the lieutenant governor position to more than just sitting around waiting for the governor to die, and actually empower me to start working on some of these policies and issues and get them through. But, it's widely unpopular in a liberal state like Illinois tends to be to do some of these reforms and start locking more people up and start, implementing good public policy. The other thing too is that it's going to be incredibly challenging and unpopular when we start firing people, right? There's so much patronage in Illinois, right? People are like, oh, there's corruption. Yeah, certainly there's corruption, but there's more than that. There's systemic bad policy. And the reason is because when you had Mike Madigan in power and you had J.B. Pritzker and you have all these different people, the Chicago machine, as they call it, when you're hiring your brother's cousin's best friend who used to be a dog walker to do a job that pays $100,000 a year because you want their political support and they're not qualified for that position, you got problems, right? So what you need to do is you need to go and you need to clean house and you need to start bringing in people who can do these jobs, who are qualified to these jobs. And guess what? A lot of these problems are going to disappear. Systemically, you're going to have better people doing their jobs that are qualified people and start taking out all the patronage system that's in Illinois and in Chicago. And I think you're going to see a meteoric rise to the way that we function here in Illinois.
Isn't there also a problem? I don't know how much the government can do about it, with the fact that there's just too many layers of government. Doesn't Illinois have, if not number one, number two, the most layers of government? So there's a lot of duplication of services, right?
Oh yeah.
And that costs
so
money.
There's over 7,000 layers of government in the state of Illinois. So I'm talking to you right now. I am in Schaumburg, Illinois, right? I'm at my office in Schaumburg, Illinois, which is right. So right now, let's just talk about it. So I'm sitting in Schaumburg, and if you're in Schaumburg, you're paying the Village of Schaumburg tax. You're also paying the Schaumburg Park District. You're paying the Township of Schaumburg tax. You're paying the library tax. You're paying the Northwest Suburban Mosquito Abatement. You're paying Cook County. You're paying the state of Illinois, right? I just at the top of my head just rattle off 7 different taxes that you have right here. Oh, water reclamation, that's number 8. I mean, it's so many layers of government, right? You also have the Schaumburg Township Rural Fire Protection District. I mean, on top of layers of government. District 211, District 54, right? I mean, now we're at 11. I mean, we could just keep on going. And none of these are working together. I mean, there should be more consolidation, a lot of it, right? So you have District 211, you have District 54, just for an example. They all have school buses to get these kids where they're going, right? But they only use them at their own local level, right? They could tier the system of having different start times for each of these schools and utilize the same ones. The food production, right? You have different facilities that prepare these foods for these schools. I mean, there's so much that they're duplicative systems that aren't necessary. I mean, the Village of Schaumburg, township government, I mean, there's some significant overlap there. I mean, the Park District has their own board and their own elected officials there. I mean, so many different government entities that are in Illinois. It's almost unheard of. I mean, other states laugh at us. They're like, what are you talking about? It's just not good government. I mean, government should be held at the local level, like I said before, certainly, but there should be a consolidation on certain levels that we're not doing, duplicate work.
All right, so let's end on the portion of the interview that's kind of like an infomercial. It's like your promo ad. So tell the people why Delmar and Gary Rabine. Tell us when you win. I almost said if. I apologize. When you win, what are the first first 2 things that you plan on doing? And you give out the information of where they can find you and help and volunteer and give you some money if they want.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that, Charles. We're part the Rabine Delmar ticket is a Republican conservative ticket that can actually win here in Illinois. We're excited about the opportunity to show what our vision is for the state of Illinois. You can find us at rabineforgovernor.com. Again, that's rabineforgovernor.com. And you can see a lot of our positions, and we keep adding more public policy issues, white paper that is on there to show you not only why we should be the next administration, but what we're going to do once we have that opportunity and are blessed to lead the state of Illinois. Gary Rabine and I, you can also find out more information about me, particularly at aarondelmar.com. And it has been a profound, it's kind of even gets a little emotional sometimes, right? It's so kind enough to be a part of this policy, because one of the things that we're doing, regardless of what happens after this primary, Gary and I are trying to highlight issues in Illinois that need to be fixed by either us, hopefully, or the next administration. No matter what, we need to get failed Governor J.B. Pritzker out of office. And I highly encourage everyone to take a look and see and compare and contrast our campaign with others. And when you see that, I think that you're going to be a supporter of ours. And we're looking for anyone that's interested in joining our campaign through volunteerism. If you have an opportunity and you have the availability of funds to donate to us, we encourage you to do so, because just like any other event or any other campaign, campaign contributions are the lifeblood of any race. So we do need those, but we are looking for more soldiers. We're looking for a militia to join the Rabine Delmar campaign and change Illinois for a positive way for everyone, not just some subgroups. And
the last thing, the only thing you missed is what thing you're going to hit the ground running with first. And I guess we got a few seconds for you to throw on, how you're going to combat the deep pockets of Pritzker.
Right. So we're doing one. First of all, there was a poll that was taken less than 4 days ago that shows us as the number one Republican team to take on JB Pritzker. We outpoll everybody by multiple points in every category. So I'm very excited about that. Number two is that we have also funding that is going to come in. Gary Rabine has built his company to 50 different states. I mean, he has some financial backing, not only that he can do himself, but other people on the grassroots levels. We did an event last night where we got a couple checks for $50, $100. There was a couple $1,000 checks there. So we are, fundraising very actively, and we're going to be a fully funded campaign. I mean, that just is what it is. On day one, Gary Rabine and I are going to evaluate all of the mandates that are in Illinois, and we're going to reverse them. We are going to look and create a committee that is not going to be just political people, but sheriffs, county, state's attorneys, all over the state of Illinois to combat crime. And we want to make immediate changes to that structure. These are just the two top things. We're going to look at the way that we do funding for schools. We're going to be looking at the way that we evaluate property taxes. There's a lot of best practices that we're talking to from the Republican Governors Association, from Ron DeSantis, from Kristi Noem, to all across the state, and take those best practices that have worked in those areas, find a way to see if we can utilize those in Illinois for the betterment of all the people.
All right. He is Aaron Delmar, candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Illinois with Gary Rabine. Thank you for joining me and telling me about the campaign.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate having me on, Charles. Always great to see you again. And again, if anybody needs anything or they have any questions, feel free to look at rabineforgovernor.com. And we're excited to lead Illinois and start paving the way for people to stay.